That's what life is. You just don't know. You don't know.
Here she is, Jerree. Welcome.
Hello. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your family before the estrangement happened.
Before the estrangement, we're just, of course I'm going to say normal, but that's a broad word. I have 5 adult children, 11 grandchildren. My parents are part of the family. My mother has since deceased. And one of my children, my oldest daughter, is now deceased. And it's kind of that incident, or that, I can't really say it started the estrangement. I've been in and out of estrangements with my children, some of my children. And interestingly enough, my middle son was estranged for years. And I never thought he would ever be back again. I ended up having to count him as dead because he didn't want to see me. So I had to deal with it that way, as if mourning for a dead person. And he ended up coming back and apologized, and he'd kind of had a journey and woke up and apologized to me. And during that period of time when he was estranged from me, I did a lot of growing up myself, and I found out, with introspection, that I didn't recognize all those years of him growing up. I didn't truly recognize who he really is. And it turns out he's a child that's most like me. And he's the one that made the phone call, because he's the one that made the rules about not wanting to have anything to do with me, that I was dead to him. He made that call, and we both came halfway back, where we met each other, and we still talk about it to this day, and it healed. And so I say, if that healed any situation, it's just not hopeless. It isn't, because they can also see the, I guess, the truth of what's going on. And so can we, because, I had some learning to do myself. Now it's an absolutely wonderful relationship, and the rules had to change. I mean, the relationship with him had to change because it was very dysfunctional, and it's a new set of dynamics, but it works. And I'm so grateful to have him back.
That's awesome. That's terrific. Let's talk about him for a minute. Were there signs that you found that you noticed before the estrangement occurred, or did it happen kind of all of a sudden?
I always called him my interesting child, being that he had I'm sure, a tough go of it, because he was the middle child. He was sandwiched between a brother on either side and then a sister on either side of them. We had trouble from the get-go. He was different. I enabled him so many times in our life together, that one time he's disappeared for a couple times in our relationship, where I didn't know where he was for at least a year and a half. And then finally I stopped enabling him, because it wasn't helping him at all. And, helping him, which wasn't really helping him. And he got mad because I stopped it. And that was a whole change he wasn't in for. So he left. And luckily for him, he chose to leave the state for the first time, and got away from his old friends, old acquaintances, old influences, the family, everything. And that's when things started to change for him. So the last estrangement, the big one, was him not liking me saying no. And he was an adult. He was in his late 30s, middle 30s when that happened. So this went on a long time, but I thought I could change him. I thought if I loved him enough, but that isn't how it works, as it turns out.
So you said no, but what does that mean? No to his behavior, or no?
He would get himself into situations and come live with my husband and I, John, who would be his stepdad. And we would rescue him. He'd get in trouble. We would, uh, you know, get his car out of impound. We would let him come stay with us. We would all of those things. Hire him to work for us, and he it just wasn't working. It just got worse and worse and worse. And then I said, we both said, it wasn't just me. Believe me, I needed the coaching from my husband. And I finally, got the gumption up to say, no more. Nope, you're gone. Kicked him out.
Interesting. So he didn't really estrange you, but he caused the estrangement in your mind that you couldn't handle him. Is that
I
right?
did. Well, I didn't know that he was going to disappear and tell me I was dead to him. That because of that, you know, no more. Don't call me anymore. Mom, you're dead to me. And, all the horrible things that they can say on top of that. So I didn't try to find him.
So would you say that the problems that cause this estrangement or the reasons were really more just interpersonal issues with your son, not really societal impact? Or do you think there was some sort of external, I guess, influence that maybe caused him to act this way?
Well, it was interpersonal, but it had everything to do with, I'm going to say, of course there were problems like normal parents have with their children, but I think a
Mhm.
lot of it had to do with the influence of the world that he was in.
Mm.
Um, the because that world that he was involved with, it wasn't my world. I didn't understand it at all. So that fed into it and didn't help at all. So
I see.
it's a combination of everything.
And he came back. How long was the estrangement, and when did he come back?
Was probably 2015 maybe, and he called me. It was either 2019, 2018 on my birthday. So he was gone, disappeared. I had no idea if he was alive, dead. As a matter
Ah,
of fact, I got trolled on Facebook by some people telling me that he had died. That's how cruel it gets, where
wow,
um,
it's
he had
outrageous.
either just trolls or people that he had enlisted to tell me that. And then he called me that day on my birthday, and believe me, it was as if he had come back from the dead. It was just an unbelievable experience.
How did you feel at the time that he disappeared?
Like I would feel if my 2-year old was gone, if my 8-year old was gone, if my any age, because you react to it as if there's still that picture that we all have in our heads of our children that's just captured there of with him. He's 2 years old with his curly blonde hair sitting out in my backyard, and that's how he is stamped in my brain. And that's
Yeah,
how I feel at all times with each one of my children. They're always that age, whatever it is.
this is an interesting point because I feel the same way with our kids. We know they're adults, but they're always our kids, and we
Mm-hmm.
always think of them as needing help or needing extra attention, and maybe that's our failing. But and then at the same time, they push back and say, "Hey, I'm an adult. Treat me like an adult." So it's kind of a very interesting dynamic.
And if you ask him, which he would be more than willing to tell you because he would love to be interviewed, it also told him when I was helping him all the time,
Mhm.
it made him feel as if he wasn't capable of helping himself. He accepted the help, but in retrospect, he said, we talked about this yesterday on the phone. It felt like he was not able to help himself. He needed mom.
Right. So that's interesting because that's a point of sort of people bring up this issue of coddling your kids or helicopter moms. Was there an element where you felt you had to do a little too much for your kids that these?
No, I wasn't. Definitely was not a helicopter mom. And possibly it's ego, where I felt like, this dates me, but Mighty Mouse, here I come to save the day. I, I really do believe that part of the mistakes that I made was my own ego needing to feed it that I am here to help my son and get him on the right path. But the what he really needed was to fall
Mhm.
and And
Yeah.
if he falls, what does that say about me? So I do believe that my own ego fed into his errors a bit.
When this did occur, who did you go to for help? Did you discuss this with friends or family immediately, or did you ever go to friends and family?
Always family, always my parents, always my husband,
Yeah.
always my daughters, my oldest son, who is the one that I am estranged from now, because he had been telling me all those years, stop helping my brother, stop helping him, you're not helping him. He told
Oh,
me time again, and yet I continued to do it, and all of them wanted me to do this a lot sooner than I did, and finally, when I was ready to listen,
yeah.
uh, I did.
Was your middle son, was he in good communication with his siblings?
None of them are in good standings with each other. This estrangement now has
Uh,
caused a rift to rock the world. The son-in-law who's estranged and my son, and they hooked up together like family occasions and birthdays and such. My children that aren't upset with me, we're all at the birthday party, but the other ones won't come at anything I'm involved with. It's split our family into sides,
oh,
The
okay.
mom side, me, and the other side that I don't know even what to call that side, because I honestly don't know what is going on. I can
Yeah.
only guess, but that guessing gets me nowhere. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's caused a rift in the family because we have a family occasion, and the split side, the estranged side, the cousins get thrown into this and don't get to see their other cousins
Yeah.
because they're at the birthday party with me, and the other ones can't come because I'm there.
Are you able to then still have one-on-one sort of meetings with your other kids? I guess that's the case.
I had a wonderful relationship with my deceased daughter. It was wonderful, and my youngest daughter, we're close as marshmallows in the hot chocolate. And my middle son and my youngest son, we're all fine.
I
It's
see. Okay.
the
Yeah.
son-in-law that ran off with my deceased daughter's 5 sons,
Mhm.
and my oldest son and that grandchild. So 6 of my grandchildren are part of the estrangement. 5 of them are not.
Have you seen them at all since she passed?
Just the one that came in my house, that snuck in the
Just the
house.
one. Okay.
And one of the first things he said to me was, please don't tell my dad.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
And
sorry.
I took a picture of him. That's my screensaver on my phone. And he said, please don't let my dad see that picture.
Yeah.
And I said, of course I'm not going to let him see the picture. And I feel bad because what am I teaching him? It's okay to break his dad's rules, but I didn't tell him to come in either. It's just, this is what happens when people are estranged, and it involves all these dynamics that are
Right.
bad for the kids. They're
Right.
bad.
Right. So I know that you said earlier that you reconciled with your middle son, which is fantastic. But now you've become estranged with your youngest son. Is that right?
Oh, my oldest son.
Your oldest son. I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
My oldest
So
son.
can you tell us a little bit quickly about that one? Like, how did that start? How long has it been with him?
Um, it started with him when he got married to
Okay.
his wife.
Did his
That's
wife cause this problem, do you think, or what?
And again, all we the estranged get to do, really, unless you know for an absolute fact, is speculate. But
Right.
it started when he married her. More and more distance between the family finally
Mhm.
got him to move to another state. When my daughter died, my oldest daughter, because I wanted to say a few words at her celebration of life, and he called me up a few days before, and he said I wasn't allowed to talk, that he and the mean son, we'll call him the mean son-in-law, got together and they didn't want me to talk. We had been told, my husband and I, that we can't be around the grandchildren at all. We've been, they've been taken away from us. So I couldn't see a way that I could go to my daughter's memorial and celebration of life and stay completely away from my grandkids who just lost their mother, my daughter. So they arranged it to where I could not go.
So cruel. I can't believe they have something against you this bad that they wouldn't let you just speak.
Because I couldn't be around the kids, it was a catch-22. How can I show up at their mother's funeral, my daughter, and not go to them? So I didn't go.
It's heartbreaking all the way around. You can't see your grandkids. You're estranged from your son now, and your one daughter's gone. Did you consider therapy, or have they gone through therapy?
The mean son-in-law is always in therapy because because of the narcissism. But there's nothing I can do about that. And what gets me through is I know her dying. My daughter knows that I would have been there. There was never, oh my God, how do I not show up for her? She knows, and I can't change them. I cannot change any of this, and it's crazy stuff. It's crazy, and you cannot make sense out of something that doesn't make sense. So I don't try.
So I guess my next question is more like, how are you handling this? You seem very strong, but I know it can hurt a lot. Do you think about this all the time? How are you dealing with the pain, I guess?
What I do is I deal with it exactly the way you deal with grief from death. It's no different. I cannot change the fact, for instance, that my daughter is gone, so to speak, but she's gone. Physically, she's gone. I can't change that. I can't change my son-in-law. I can't change most of this. All I can change is how I deal with it.
Yeah.
And I just don't try. One of the benefits of being me is that I have an ability to look at things from other people's perspective. And my mean son-in-law, if I was him with his upbringing, with his, cognitive disorder, with everything he's got on his plate, I don't know how I would react. I don't know if I was my oldest son and if I was him, how would I look at it? So there's other perspectives other than my own. I just get to be patient with other people's perspectives. Being patient is not one of my fortes, but I'm learning patience in this trial, and I'm here to learn.
Yes.
And I'm here to lead here the best me possible. And patience is a big thing. And it may not happen, but my middle son has proved that yes, it couldn't have been worse. But he came back. And if they don't come back, they're still, even though they're my flesh and blood and my children, and I couldn't love them more, they're still people. They're still people. And sometimes people are not so nice. They're not so well put together. And that's just the reality of it.
Are you no contact with your oldest son now?
My son made it abundantly clear by his actions that he doesn't exactly want to be around me, and I refuse to submit myself to toxic people. And I don't mean he's toxic to anybody else, but he's toxic to me. Just the fact that what was done to me, that anybody could do it, let alone my own son, tells me that he is not good for me. Like I might as well go drink arsenic right now is to put myself. I don't want to be around toxic people. That doesn't, and again, I want to be clear, that doesn't brand him as toxic to his friends, to his son, to his wife, to anybody else. It's toxic to me. And I just will refuse to be that cruel to myself. I have chosen out of the relationship. Because if I play by his rules, and I venture to say, if I was to cater to my mean son-in-law and play by his rules, that I might be let back in.
Mm-hmm.
No, not going
Right.
to, not going to be
Right.
under rules.
What advice would you give, I guess, families who are pre-estranged, people who aren't quite estranged yet, but maybe they see something coming? Is there anything that you've learned that maybe would prevent this from happening?
It goes back to that saying or old adage, maybe not so old, that plan for the best, prepare for the worst. I believe that's how it goes. That
Mm-hmm.
all you can really do, because it involves other people's choices, the dynamics of their life. Something could happen to them that they end up blaming on you that has nothing whatsoever to do with you. You can't control that, nor should you try. Educate yourself. Treat, again, get a hold of some great more books about mourning, death. And just like you would think, so and so in your life, when somebody that you love is on hospice or palliative care, and it's coming, treat
Yeah.
it maybe like that, to where you're not blindsided when it happens, because it's the blindsiding that's the worst. No more than you can keep someone from being an alcoholic or a drug addict or anything else. You have no power over that. There's nothing you can do, and don't try, because you're just going to frustrate yourself.
So you're sort of advocating the idea here of becoming aware of this problem. I mean, when this happened to us, we weren't aware of this at all. If I had known about this, it would have at least given me more of a soft landing, a way to prepare myself, like you're suggesting. And I think the more and more awareness we can provide, the better. Now, on the other side, on the flip side, I know you reconcile, which was fantastic, and it's very low chances typically. Is there anything in particular that you did or he did to kind of bring you back together that others might be able to use?
I think what made it different is that he had gotten into drugs for a long period of time. There were times where we sent him to rehab and that sort of thing. So when you're dealing with someone that has altered altered reality because of substances like that, there is a chance that if they do sober up, and the chances of that sometimes are rare, but if they do sober up and it stops being the drug or alcohol or whatever it is talking, then there's a better chance. But when you're dealing with children, that are lucid, and I'll use that term loosely, but it's just their own minds doing this, yeah, the chances are a lot less, unfortunately. But there's still a chance, and you still live your life. Just because you didn't catch on to the fact that she was on her way out, that doesn't make you a bad parent. They do things all the time that you don't find out. Oh my gosh, one of the hardest things to do as a parent is when especially a mom, when your children get together, your sons, for instance, and they start telling stories about what they did in high school and with each other, one-upmanship, and you're listening to these stories they're telling that you didn't know happened. You didn't know that they were sneaking out their window at night and all that. So they have a life that you're not privy to, and thoughts that you're not privy to, and a world telling them that you are less than valuable, and it takes hold of them, and it's a drug. It's a cult.
I think what's interesting too is that there are some parents we're finding who say that they're completely distraught, like they have one or more or all children rather are estranged, and they don't have another child. And in fact, I hear really heartbreaking where they think they're saying even publicly on YouTube that they're ready to end it, like they're really ready to commit suicide, which is horrendous to hear. What can you say to those people? Like how to pull them out and accept the situation. It can be very difficult to do.
It involves going inside, being introspective, and being able to understand that nobody was born knowing how to drive, knowing how to work a computer, me, knowing how to parent, born knowing these things. And then if you have 5 children, I had my firstborn was my firstborn. My secondborn was my secondborn. Everything's a first. Everything is a first, and nobody knows what they're doing. And you may have watched, Dating Myself Again, Ozzie and Harriet, and Father Knows Best, and all those shows, and saw these perfect parents. But you might be doing something very functional as a parent, but your child, because of their personality, what they came into the world with, is a chemical reaction that isn't right. It might have worked on the first 2 kids, but it doesn't work on child number 3. You don't know, because you're doing a chemistry kind of thing all those years, and it never stops. And you don't know what's going to happen when you put those things together. It might work great on this one. It doesn't work on this one. That's what life is. You just don't know. You don't know. What comes to mind is, and it sounds so funny and so ridiculous, don't take it so personal. Don't take it so personal. You can't take credit for all the negative things that your children turn out being or doing. You also can't take credit for all the positive either. So it's a crapshoot.
There's no dress rehearsal, right? And you only live once.
None.
And we're all learning it, as we go. And there's no manual. And parents are vilified because they should be perfect. They should know everything and do everything right. And and that's not true. Look, parents are kids too, which the kids forget. That we're kids too.
Oh yeah, you get criticized because you're acting too old. You're too old. But when you act like a young person, then you get criticized for that. But what it comes down to is the ability for everybody, no matter what side of the estrangement, it's forgiveness. It's forgiveness. If they get to the point, if the estranged children get to the point in their lives where they can just either by their own experience and become parents and realize that, oh, this is not fun. And, oh, I remember when I did this, they sometimes start forgiving their parents and going, oh, it used to be a funny thing with me and my mother, now deceased, where I would call her and it just made her chuckle. And I'd go, hey, Mom, remember that thing I did back, so-and-so? I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry. And I'd apologize to her all the time for things I pulled. And she just thought that was so fun and funny that I would remember. And that's what everyone has to do, and to forgive them for being children.
I think also too, I think you need to forgive yourself, meaning that no one is perfect.
I always tell people, I tell my own children, don't take parenting too seriously, because ultimately you're supposed to keep them alive. That's really what you do, is you keep them alive, because that's it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak out and say something and encourage other people to do the same thing, because it is very cathartic to be able to at least get your message or your pain or whatever it is, to put it out there to other people that it'll mean something to.
Yeah, I think that's well said. We're here as parents, and we're here to support each other. I mean, it's interesting to realize that so many people don't realize that this happens so much.
They take it as an embarrassment, and a shame. They feel shameful. Right. No. Chances are you did great, and you would get a Medal of Honor for being able to deal with it.